what is a dietitian? How is that different from a nutritionist? How does one even become a dietitian? And what does a dietitian's career path look like? If you've ever had any of these questions, or if you're just interested in nutrition as a career path, this video is for you. My name is Victoria. I just graduated with my bachelor's degree from the University of Alabama in food and nutrition, and right now I'm halfway through my Accelerated master's program in human nutrition, and I'm halfway through my dietetic internships. I'm doing all of this in hopes of becoming a registered dietitian, and today I'm going to tell you what that entails, how to get there, and all the details that you might be wondering about. So let's start with the very basics. Dietitian is short for Registered Dietitian Nutritionist, which can be shortened to RDN or RD, and a lot of times just dietitian. You'll see very few people shorten it to nutritionist because that title has no credentials behind it and no requirements. Registered dietitians, on the other hand, have a bunch of requirements to get the certification that they have to become certified to talk to people about nutrition. So let's go through those. To become a registered dietitian, you have to have a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, 1,000 supervised practice hours, you have to have passed the RD exam, and after becoming a dietitian, you have to do 75 hours of continuous education every 5 years. A nutritionist has to do none of that. In fact, there are absolutely no education or credentials required to call someone a nutritionist, which is why you might see misleading information on social media from people who claim to be nutritionists. I promise, if somebody is online giving you nutrition information and they're actually a registered dietitian, they will say somewhere, dietitian, RD, registered dietitian, anywhere on their page or on their video. If they didn't, it would be like a doctor who went through so many years of med school just to introduce themselves as Mr. Jones. No, they're gonna say, hi, I'm Dr. Jones. Just like somebody who has went through all of the credentialing and all of the schooling to become a registered dietitian is going to put RD behind their name, not just nutritionist. So if you see people giving nutrition information online, make sure to go to their profile and really look and see if it says dietitian, and even then take it with a grain of salt because people can lie. So first things first on this list, let's talk about the undergraduate and graduate degrees. The bachelor's degree that you complete must be a DPD program, or a didactic program in dietetics, that the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has certified to be a program that can give you the education that you need in order to become a dietitian. And the master's degree that you pursue must be a graduate program in nutrition and dietetics, or a GP. And this is also something where the Academy has to go through and they have to approve all of the coursework and all of the classes for that program to make sure that you're getting the education that you actually need to become a dietitian. And the reason it's important to go to one of these types of programs that is actually accredited is because the only way to be able to be admitted into a supervised practice program is to have graduated from a credentialed program. If you want to learn more about what these programs are actually like and what it would be like to major in food and nutrition at an accredited program, you can go check out one of my last videos on what you should know before choosing food and nutrition as a major, where I basically go through what the class load looks like and what types of classes you would actually be taking in the program to graduate with that degree. It's a super in-depth video, and I think it would be super helpful for anybody who's actually thinking about pursuing nutrition and dietetics as a major in college. So now that we've gotten education out of the way, that bachelor's and that master's degree, let's go on to the supervised practice hours. 1,000 supervised practice hours. That's kind of a lot. So like I said, first things first is you had to have been enrolled in and graduated from a DPD program. Once you graduated from that, you can apply to get your supervised practice hours. So there are two different ways to get your supervised practice hours. One of them is, like I said, you can first get your DPD verification from that program, then you can apply to a dietetic internship program. This would be like doing all 4 years of your bachelor's degree and then completing those practice hours either while you're getting your master's degree or after you get your master's degree. So in total, that could be about 4 years for your bachelor's plus 2 years for your master's and maybe a third year for your supervised practice hours. That could be up to 7 years. The other option, besides doing a DPD and then a DI, remember dietetic internship, is to do a DPD, coupled with a DI, and this is called a coordinated program, where it coordinates the two together, so you're doing them at one time instead of separately. It's actually really nice because, especially if you're doing it through a university, it will actually coordinate your classes with the rotations that you're doing. So for example, while you're doing community nutrition in class, you'll also be actually doing community nutrition during your supervised practice hours. There are obviously some big discrepancies in how long each of these would take, and doing the coordinated program would be a lot faster, but a lot of coordinated programs require a much higher GPA so that they know that you can take on the course load as well as the hours at the same time successfully. So now that we've been over all the things that are required to actually sit for the RD exam, I'm going to go into how I'm actually completing all of my requirements in just 5 years. So I didn't even know that I was really interested in nutrition before I went to college, so I didn't even know if I was going somewhere that would have a verified nutrition program. In fact, when I started college, I was an undecided major, and I ended up taking a Nutrition 101 class, and I absolutely loved it. And actually, my professor for that class was the coordinated program director for the school, and soon I found out that University of Alabama actually has a wonderful nutrition program, and it produces a lot of really great dietitians. I changed my major to food and nutrition, and I took all of the required classes and all of the sciences that come with it, which again, I detail very closely in my video all about being a food and nutrition major. Throughout some of these classes, the nutrition faculty came and talked to us about the different programs and the path to become a dietitian, because like I described in my other video, it's very uncommon to be in the food and nutrition major if you're not planning to become a dietitian. There's not much else that you can do with the degree. They really sold me on the university's coordinated program, and like I described, that combines your internships with your schooling. And since as of 2024, you now have to have a master's degree to sit for the Registered Dietitian Exam, the university has helped us out a little bit, and now the coordinated program is actually a graduate program. So previous to 2024, you could go through the coordinated program at University of Alabama as a bachelor's student and then finish with your hours and your bachelor's degree. But now the coordinated program is a graduate program. So while enrolled in the coordinated program, you finish your bachelor's degree, complete your entire master's degree, and complete all 1,000 supervised practice hours. Now, I am aware, and they are aware, that that is a lot to do at one time and in one sitting, which is why the requirements to get in are pretty steep, because they want to make sure that the individuals enrolled in this program would be able to be successful. So around February, during our junior year of college, it was time to apply. And the requirements for applying was we had to have a 3.7 GPA, 2 letters of recommendation from non-faculty members, because the faculty members were the ones who were basically deciding who would and who would not be enrolled in the program. We had to have a statement of purpose, and simultaneously to applying to the coordinated program, we had to apply to the Accelerated Master's program at the University of Alabama. And the Accelerated Master's program can be done with a lot of different majors at UA, and I think a lot of other colleges have Accelerated Master's programs, where essentially you start taking master's classes during your senior year, so you're taking bachelor's and master's classes at the same time, and then your 5th year, you would only be taking master's classes, and then you would finish at the end of that 5th year. That's a whole year less than it usually takes to get your bachelor's and your master's degree. So the caveat was, even if you did all of the requirements to make it into the coordinated program, you had to be let into the master's program as well in order to be able to do the coordinated program. Because remember, it's now a graduate program. Luckily, a lot of the criteria is the same for applying to both of those programs. So I sent all the same information to both the coordinated program and the Accelerated Master's people, and I waited to hear back. They coordinated, they talked to each other, and I got into both programs, and then I was enrolled in the coordinated program. And again, this was in the spring semester of our junior year, which means that we would start it in the fall of our senior year and then complete it 1 year after college. So the summer between that spring that we applied and the fall that we would start, we had to get a lot of testing done, including background checks, TB tests, flu shots, and any vaccinations and things that we would need to be able to work in a hospital or any area where we were taking care of people. Once we got all of those things done, then in the fall we started with community rotations. So the entire fall semester we were just doing community, which means that we were working a lot with food banks around town, soup kitchens, and if you want to hear more detailed what we did for every single rotation thus far, you can go and check out my preparing for rotations video where I talk about getting ready for rotations, what I would do to prepare, care, how I would reach out to my preceptor, and things like that. But essentially, that first semester we did community, and then the second semester we did long-term care and food service. Now, the course load during my senior year essentially looked like all master's classes plus 1 or 2 undergraduate classes. I really didn't have that much left of my bachelor's degree, which is part of the reason that this accelerated master's program works, is that you get a lot of those classes done by the end of your junior year. Now, this upcoming year is about to be only master's classes, and it's going to be about the same workload of rotations, maybe a little bit more. So the first semester this year, we will have our first rotation of clinicals and our second rotations of food service. And then in the spring, we'll have our second rotation of community and our second rotation of clinicals. And at the end, I'm going to graduate with my master's degree in the spring, and we'll have our white coat ceremony where we officially become accredited to be able to take the Registered Dietitian Exam, which is super exciting. So speaking of the exam, I'm definitely feeling some pressure to go ahead and start studying for it, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend this semester looking over a lot of past coursework, and then over the winter break, I'm really going to hunker down. I'm going to get an official study guide from the academy, and then I'm going to study that for the entirety of the spring semester. And I plan to take my Registered Dietitian Exam as soon as I can after graduating, because a lot of our professors give the advice that students do their best the sooner they take the exam after graduating. Because if you wait longer to focus on studying, you lose a lot of the knowledge that you gain by just doing the rotations and being in the classes and things that you wouldn't even think about. So hopefully I will be able to take the exam in either May of 2026 or June of 2026. And that is my goal. And if you fail the exam, you can take it multiple times over, but my goal is to get it one and done in the first round and then be registered as a dietitian. This is also important because a lot of times you can actually be offered a job prior to getting your credentials, with the caveat that you will actually pass your Registered Dietitian Exam. So you could go ahead and have a job lined up, but if you don't pass the exam in your first go around, then you would very likely lose that job. And again, I haven't personally taken the exam yet, but from what I've heard, it is an online exam. It's proctored, so you're in a room with a bunch of other people, and as you're taking the exam, you don't know exactly how many questions it's going to be. Sometimes you could be doing very well, and then they'll add extra questions at the end that they might test for using the next round of exams. Or maybe you're not doing so hot, or you're right on the border of passing, so they're going to give you more questions to really try to see your knowledge because they may not be able to tell yet. So it's undetermined exactly how many questions will be on the exam, which is a little bit frightening. All in all though, it's very exciting that all of this is coming up, and I'm so excited to just be zoned in this whole year and get ready for graduation. Now, the last aspect to being a dietitian, or I guess the last required aspect, is that once you become a dietitian, you have to have 75 continuous education hours every 5 years. So that could mean that within a 5-year period, maybe you do all those 75 in 1 year, or maybe you split it evenly over the 5. As long as it's 75 hours over 5 years, every single 5 years, then you're good to go. And those hours could look like a lot of different things. I've had a preceptor who will order books from the academy, and as long as she reads that book and turns in a timeline, and as long as she turns in basically a reading log of what she read and when, they will give her some hours for that. You can also take hours for being a preceptor. You can get hours for taking on a student and teaching them for one of their rotations. You can also get a lot of hours by watching webinars, by going to conferences. That's one of the biggest ways to get continuous education hours. And I'm actually very excited for this year because I am actually going to get to go to the Food and Nutrition Conference Expo that is in Nashville this year. And I'm going to get to be one of the student hosts, which you get a discounted ticket for only $50. And you get to work some of the booths, you get to be at FNCE, and you get to see different people present on nutrition information and see what an actual conference looks like. And I've never been to anything like this, so the prospect of getting to see what it's like is super exciting, especially because I will probably be going to FNCE every year for the rest of my career to try to get those continuous education hours, to meet my fellow colleagues and meet up with the girls that I went to college with. So as for being a registered dietitian, even though it seems like the new master's requirement has diminished the already small group of people who are willing to do the 1,000 supervised practice hours, this line of work can be really great and really versatile. Like I said, RDs can work pretty much anywhere since eating is one of the universal things that everyone has in common. And like I said, even if you don't want to stick with one specialty, it's pretty common to switch every 5 to 10 years doing a different type of job, and it can can align with what's going on in your life. Like, let's say you're single, you're living alone in a city. You could work for a sports team and follow them to games every single week since you don't have any obligations. Or maybe you're about to have a child, then you could work for a school system and be off at the same times that they're off. You could also spend the beginning of your career working at something fast-paced like a hospital where you're seeing a lot of different people with a lot of different nutritional issues, see if anything piques your interest specifically, and if you might want to go into a line of work that's specifically about one thing. For example, you could be a diabetes educator, or you could do something more broad like opening your own private practice, or you could work at a specific private practice like for pregnant mothers, or at a government program like WIC, Women, Infants, and Children, which is also another great line of work. Right now, the field of nutrition has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the entirety of the United States, which in the current job market is really saying something and is really something to think about. The demand for dietitians is great, and there really is not enough of them right now to go around. So if you're interested in pursuing this career, then you could definitely be needed. There are a lot of different opportunities and a lot of different options, and not to mention, the pay of a dietitian can definitely vary a lot, but the average national pay right now is pretty good. I'm so stoked to become a registered dietitian, and I can't wait to share with y'all so much more of my journey, showing y'all what a week in my life looks like going to rotations while also doing master's classes, and I hope y'all stick around and subscribe to see more of those videos. I hope you got a better picture of what it takes to be a dietitian and how to get there, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!